You're the joke and I'm the queen. See your mouth, it keeps talking, and all you do is spit words loudly and the earth. You're the bitter and I'm the sweet. You stay shallow and go deep. Fishes bite in the light, don't you feel me? Take it to the beach and wish for this. Your mind's at ease. Take it to the beach. Shallow and deep and shallow and deep and shallow and deep and.
Alright everybody, we are about to get started. Again, sorry for the delay. I was actually on a call with a friend trying to help him with his own live stream setup. But don't worry, we are about ready to begin in just a moment. I have to share out everything and also start the Instagram live. But it should only be a couple more moments. I do apologize. Thank you so much for sticking around. Alright, thank you so much everybody for tuning in to another live stream. This is my 4th live stream of the week. I honestly was almost thinking about not going live today because I'm actually a little bit tired. But I'm going to power through this as much as I can and get as much stuff to share with you guys as possible today. I don't know if we're going to be going the full hour, but we will try and get as much information as possible and share it with you all. If you guys are just tuning in, just to share a little bit about you with the new schedule, every Monday and Friday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, I will be going live here on YouTube. And every Tuesday and Thursday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. I'm going live on Behance. In addition to going live on both of these streams, I am also doing Instagram Live as we speak. So thank you guys so much for tuning in on Instagram Live. I really appreciate it. I really love the fact that There is so many people who are enjoying the live streams. They're tuning in. They're asking questions. It's just a lot of fun for me, and I hope it is for you guys as well. Got a couple of questions coming in on YouTube. Savannah Chandler says, will you be using textures? Probably not for these illustrations. I actually don't use textures a whole lot. I tend to, with illustrations, stay away from them. But I usually do work in shadows or work with patterns in some of these illustrations. In Argentina, it's the same thing. I am doing a home office, but locked down now has extended till May 10th. I really think that these lockdowns are going to continue over a longer period than a lot of people are thinking they will, unfortunately. Let's see, what are you using to stream? So I'm using my Sony a7 III. For those of you on Instagram, here it is right here. I'm using my iPhone to stream directly to Instagram Live. Here's my microphone up top. And then I'm using something called OBS to have my different screens. So like, for instance, I have here I'm going to, or actually I can't really bring it over. My desktop screen, I have an iPad screen, my schedule. If I have other people on, I have a dual screen. And then also a topic screen, which I never actually used this week. I just realized that I didn't use this before. But today we're creating a vector landscape in Adobe Illustrator CC. Hopefully I can start getting on the right frame of mind with some of these things. So I do apologize, I didn't have that before. So the software I'm using is called OBS. It's free software. There's nothing that you have to buy for that. There are OBS software that you can purchase that might be a little bit better, but this is all I found that I've needed. Okay, so just so you guys can see what we've been working on, because the people on YouTube actually may not have seen these quite yet. Over the course of the last few days, we have been creating a series of, a single illustrated illustrated landscape in Adobe Illustrator. Let me open up some of these other files. You guys can kind of see what you guys might have missed from the previous streams. So the stream that we had on Tuesday on Behance, which, oh, by the way, if you guys would like to go and check out the previous live streams that you may have missed, you can actually go to my Behance profile, which is, let me minimize this so I can read it to you. It's behance.net/RockyRourke/videos. And you guys can check out the last 2 live streams on here to see what you missed. But in the previous live streams, we first went through and we added a bunch of detail to the illustration, from trees to grass to bushes. We added some wind turbines in the background and other small details like that. Then we went in and we started with our first color option here. Now, this wasn't even the final piece that we had. This was just us trying to see how we could include color into the illustration. And then as we come into this final one, you can actually see here, if we go back and forth between the two, you can see that a lot has changed from this illustration here to this illustration here. Specifically when it comes to the houses. We changed those up a little bit. And the way that we went through and colored all of these was using Adobe Recolor, which you can always find if you click on one of these. You can find it up here in the top corner. Let me show that for Instagram right up here. Now, one thing that I've kind of showed in the past, or I may have lacked or didn't get a chance to share in the past, was that sometimes you don't always want to use the exact color options or the exact colored versions that they show. And here's a perfect example of that I saved here. And this is just, this is just a comparison for you guys so you guys can see a little bit. Uh-oh, did it not include? Oh, I know what I did. 1 second. Let's see. We'll lock that. That way we can fix this. I'm just going through a little refresher for those of you who might have missed what we did in the last streams. We're going to unlock it. There we go. So if we pull this up here, we can see here, this was the original version of this that we did in Recolor. And you can see here, this is how we went through and edited it to make it a little bit better. Make it a little bit more holistic, and honestly, it looks a whole heck of a lot better than it did in the previous version. But I just wanted to share that with you guys real quick. We got some questions coming in on Instagram, or excuse me, on YouTube. Let's see. Hello, Mahmood. Sorry about that. Hello, Mahmood. Let's see, Savannah. Do you use symbols for your basic vectors and custom shapes often? I actually don't use any symbols whatsoever with these illustrations. I've never used them, never found a use for them with these. I'm sure that it probably could help my overall workflow, but it's just something that I've never thought about using or used. Let's see. Mahmood says, do you have experience in illustrating vehicles? If yes, can you please make this session or next session about vehicles? Believe it or not, I have not done a whole lot of vehicles when it comes to vector illustrations like this. I actually like that challenge, Mahmood, that you just placed there. I think next week I'm going to do something that actually kind of scares me a little bit, and we're going to make next week's stream about creating vehicles or creating objects kind of similar to what we did here with this vector landscape. So I'm going to put down next week's live stream, vehicles and objects. And I know this makes me a little bit nervous because I haven't done a vehicle in a very long time in Illustrator. So there will be a lot of trial and error there. So you guys will definitely get to be entertained that way. And again, for those of you who are tuning in on YouTube and even on Instagram as well, remember that I am going live on Behance on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So please also remember to follow me on there. If you follow me on Behance, when I go live, Adobe Creative Cloud will actually let you guys know when I go live as a reminder. So definitely, if you haven't, please head over to Behance. Let's see, let me pull it up one more time. I believe it's behance.net/RockyRoar. And then if you click into here, this is what you will normally see is the work. If you click into the videos, you'll be able to see all of the previous live streams I've done on there, which is only 4 for now. But there will be a lot more in the near future. So what we'll probably do is next week we will start by doing that stream on YouTube, and then we'll finish out everything over the course of the week in Behance, and then finally coming in through on YouTube again. So Mahmood, if you really would like to see that, I would definitely suggest that you tune in there. Again, thank you guys so much for being so active in the chat here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to ask. This stream is actually going to be a little bit lighter than the other streams because we've already done the majority of the work here. And we will be doing one more thing that I'm actually a little excited to share. But questions will definitely help out extend how long we do the live stream today. Savannah asks, any tips to prevent crashing of huge vector files? Oh god, trust me, I've had that problem so many times. Number one, close out everything else that you have open. Don't keep a ton of things. Don't have a lot of elements in one file. So for instance, I learned from this specific type of illustration. I had one master file where I created all of my landscape illustrations, and it ended up crashing Illustrator twice because I had so many of these, so many different elements, and it was just too much for it to handle. So what I would suggest is, if you know that you're going to have files that are going to be too heavy or have too much stuff in them, try and save out new versions every single time, deleting anything that is non-essential in the newer versions or the separate versions. So for instance, if I was creating a series of 5 of these landscape illustrations, I would create 5 different files, but then I would also create different files, for instance, a working file, which is kind of like what this is here, where we actually have our inspiration, we have the elements that we created, And then I also will create a file where we go through and do the color. That way they're separate, they're not too huge, they're not going to bog down your system, because I know that's something a lot of people struggle with their illustration files. They can get very heavy. Another thing that will also help out is make sure that you're not importing giant image files into your Illustrator documents. So if you bring in reference images, make sure once you're done with them, you don't need them, save them in a previous version, but go ahead and remove those completely. That should definitely help out. Thank you so much for the question, Savannah. Thank you everybody for tuning in and for, you know, just being a part of these live streams. If you guys like what you guys are seeing or hearing in these streams, please remember to hit that like button. And also, if you're not already, please remember to hit the subscribe. For those of you who are on Instagram who are tuning in, please hit that heart button and let me know that you guys are liking these streams. But what we're going to do is, well, actually first, yeah, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do something a little bit different. I actually have, let me pull it up over here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a separate, dribble. There we go. We're going to be creating a separate version of this illustration. And I wanted to bring you over to my Instagram account so you guys could actually see what I'm talking about here. So if you look here, we're going to be creating a line work illustration, a line work vector illustration of the same one that we've already done, just in a little bit different style. This is going to be a lot simpler, but it's still going to be challenging. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab one of the illustrations. We're going to just drag it up here. And before we do anything, we're going to select everything, make sure that the new one's not selected, and we're going to lock it. That way we don't accidentally choose something we don't want to. Alright, so we're going to zoom in here. And by the way, this was my favorite color scheme of all the color schemes that we used the other day. Savannah says, thank you, that was very helpful. I'm glad it was helpful. Please keep the questions coming. If you have questions, ask them. I'm totally down to answer any and all questions that you guys might have. Alright, so let's actually go back over to Dribble, and we're going to grab the image here. We're going to bring it in here because we want to be able to see some of the stuff that we've done in the past. Drag it over here. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the clipping mask. And one thing we can do instantly is we could take everything that we have here, just select it all, and we could just change it to a stroke. Just like so. And this actually allows us to instantly see where we might have some problem points. Alright? So, for instance, we don't need any of the overlays that we had before. In fact, we can kind of see that they're adding some problems. So we're going to go ahead and delete those. Let's zoom in here. Get rid of that guy. Get rid of that guy. And there we go. Now we're seeing some problems, right? We're seeing these dark lines here. This means that we have overlaps. So we'll have to definitely fix that. We'll have to also fix some of the chimneys. So like right here, you just bring this up a little bit. Or actually what we can do is we can actually send it behind just like the other pieces. There we go. Alright, so now that we have this the way that we do, we're going to need to play around and figure out what size stroke we're going to want. So we've got this. I think if we go by this example off to the side here, I'm going to go to 3 and see how that looks. And there automatically is some problems, but that's okay. We'll fix those. I think 3 is going to be a little too thin, so we're going to put it up to 4. Okay, that feels a bit better. We're running some problems with certain areas. We'll be able to fix it, no problem. So I'm not too worried about that. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to start fixing some of those areas. So like, for instance, the windmills here, the wind turbines. We have to fix those because right now those aren't working the way that they're set up. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull up our stroke panel. I'll pull that out here so you guys can see it on Instagram. And we're going to do the align the stroke. We're going to do the outside and see how that looks. That instantly feels a little bit better. But we need to fix something else with this as well. So we're going to zoom in. And we're going to grab, we're going to lock that. There we go. We have the circle. Bring that to the front. There we go. So now we have that turbine there. Whoops, I just realized I unlocked everything else on the board. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go through and fix all of these. But what we'll do to save some time is we're going to just select this one, group it, and then we're going to replace all of these. So we're just going to drag that over, and we'll fix with Unite in a second. We're going to unite those. And I think what we're going to do is we're actually going to get rid of these. Or should we? Yeah, I think we should. We can remove it and add things to the illustration because we're doing this. There we go. And we're going to actually we're going to change this to a stroke as well. There we go. That was a little bit distracting. But we have to also go and lock everything else. All right. So we got the windmill situation done. We got these trees here that we also need to fix. Switch those to the outward, and instantly those feel good. The one problem is though is we also have having problems with the spacing for these, so we'll just need to move those over just a hair. Okay, it's feeling better. We may even have to remove one of them, and I think that's what we're going to do. And we're just going to move this over just a little bit. We're going to remove one of these down here, and we're going to spread them out again, and that should also help. Yep, that feels good. All right, and so we also need to do this for other areas as well. Or actually what we should be doing is we should also select all of this and change the points here. There we go. It's actually interesting because I just noticed that one of the problems that we have with these is that for some reason they all aligned inside stroke. So what we're going to do is we're going to select everything. We're not select the pieces that we already fixed. And we're going to set this to align stroke to center. There we go. So some of the things that we're having problems with just fixed. But some of them we do have to finagle with a little bit. So one thing that we're going to actually remove is we're going to remove the grass that we currently have here, and we're going to add different types of grass in. Or we might even leave it how it is. And then we're also going to unite all of the bushes and clouds. So I'm just going to, I have to do it one at a time, otherwise it's going to select them all at once. Let's see, Savannah asks, what is the difference in changing the stroke from the other outlines? I don't understand how that is different. So let me actually pull up here and I'll show you guys what the different outlines are. So we're going to just take a square here. And then we're going to also do a circle off the side of it. Pull this out a little, so you guys can get an idea of what's going on. So what we see here, this right now, these are all set to the same stroke, align to stroke. There's 3 different ones. So the first one is the align stroke to center, which is the standard way to align strokes. The other one is align stroke to the inside. And when we click that, what it does is you'll see the stroke is on the outside here, and it's brought the actual stroke view inside. So if we increase the stroke, it's increasing inside. Versus when we're doing it with the first option, it's doing it directly onto the center. Now, the other option is doing it to the align stroke to the outside. And that does the opposite of this one. So now the stroke is aligned to the outside of the shape instead of the inside or the center. So hopefully that answers your question, Savannah. Let me know if it doesn't, and I'll try and clarify any questions you have with that. Okay, so let's go back in here, and we're going to continue with the uniting of the cloud, or of the clouds, and of the bushes. And I'm also seeing some other problems too, that some things that we have to unite as well, specifically the foreground elements. Let's see. Someone on Instagram. Hey, Rocky, I'm finding this super interesting, but I'm just wondering, why are you fixing the stroke version of the illustration instead of using only the colored and filled version? So the only reason why I'm doing this this also here is I just want to show you guys that it is relatively quick and easy to change the style of the illustration from a fill color to a stroke. There's some instances where a stroke will actually be important versus a full color. Specifically, the reason why or the place that you would probably use this would be for printing or screen printing. So if I wanted to screen print this, I would potentially have to decrease the amount of colors here to maybe about 3 to 4 colors, or I could do a separate version that is all stroked. And sometimes clients may even want to have both options. So that's the reason why I'm doing this here. Thank you so much for asking that, by the way. Okay, so I think we have that. So now we need to unite all the foreground elements, because notice here that we have these pieces that we just placed here, but now they're visible, so we're going to need to unite those as well. Same with this side. Turn off my notifications. Alright. And so the one thing is that when you do this, you also notice certain parts that you may have missed. So for instance, on one piece that I missed, I forgot to change, was actually down here. There was a little bit of an overlap. So we can easily fix this. Whoops. By grabbing the angle that we want to align it to, copying it, or the stroke, then deselecting it, pasting in front. Don't worry, we're gonna delete this later, and then align to bottom. Let's make sure that it didn't mess up anywhere else. I think we're good. The only part that we have to fix is this house here, which we're gonna do the same thing we just did here, which is copy that one area. We're gonna move it off to the side a bit so that way we can make sure it disappears. And then we're gonna align the house to that. And this is a quick way that you can align things in case you have any problems. So another thing that we have here is any one of these trees that we have that are just strokes, we need to go through and actually remove the white part of the stroke. And the only one that actually this is a problem for is actually this one right here, but we want to do it to all of them. Okay, we removed that. We have opacities here that we actually don't want. So we're going to ungroup those so we can remove the opacity. And I think we're actually going to remove one of these waves to give them a little bit extra space. Because right now, because of the fact that we are all in one color, a one color stroke, we want to give a little bit of extra breathing room. Okay, so I'm going to actually go through and resize these trees a bit. We may have to, we're actually going to remove one of the trees so that we can do this. Because I don't like how the strokes line up with that. That feels a little bit better. And one thing we could also do is we could also completely remove the water strokes from this version. Because we actually don't need them here. So I think that's what we're going to do is we're going to remove those. And that also lightens up the entire composition. Before, it was a little bit heavy, and now it's feeling a little bit better. So Savannah asks, can you explain some troubleshooting for editing when paths are not close? So that's kind of like what I was doing just a moment ago. One thing to remember, so like let's actually go back. Yeah, let's see if we can't find an instance where that's the case, or we can create one. So let's say that this house is not fully on this line here, and we could try and move it with our cursor, and it might not work, right? It might not align correctly the way that we want it to. So the easiest way to align things like this is, let's say we wanted to align it to the top of this path. We can take our direct selection tool. We can select the area we want it to be aligned to. We can copy it. We can then paste it on top. This is only temporary, but let me apply some color here so you can see it. We'll bring this to the front. And so once we have that, we're going to then take them both selected, and we're just going to align to the bottom, or to the left, or to the top, wherever it is that you're having these alignment issues. And it's that simple. Then we just deselect the house, and we delete the extra little piece, and now it's perfectly aligned to the line. That's one instance. There's a lot of times where you'll have things that aren't fully aligned together. I think we actually had a problem with this house, or this building here. So let's actually come over here and see if we can't see that. We'll decrease the stroke. Actually, it was perfectly aligned. Oh, I know why it wasn't looking like it was. It was because of the fact that our stroke was set to this. So in this instance, you can see they're not aligned, but that's actually because of the aligned stroke. When we put it to the correct align, it works perfect. So Savannah, I hope that answers your question. I know that that's something that a lot of people tend to have problems with illustrations, is the fact that they run into these issues with alignment. So with these two buildings here, I'm actually going to remove a window so that we can give things a little bit of space, because right now this is really tight. We're going to zoom in here. I'm just going to tap this over a little bit. And then we're just going to eyeball it. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we also need to send this chimney back. Do you use the shear tool to get correct angles on roofs, or do you eyeball it? So what I did was with the roof, you can actually, if you want to, you can actually see exactly how I built the houses in the first live stream I did of the series, which was on YouTube. And that should explain exactly, but the way that I built these houses wasn't actually, I didn't shear the roofs. Instead, and actually I'll go ahead and recreate it for you. I took a rectangle and then I copied it, pasted it behind, moved it over, shrunk this down a little bit just so it's aligned perfectly. I added a anchor point to the direct center up top here. Selected it with the direct selection tool, and I just brought it up to the height I thought would be good. Let's see. Hello, Mark Bowden. Thank you so much for tuning in, man. I'm glad that you like this and like the process. Then I went and copied it. Copied just like the one angle here. Pasted it in front. Then pressed Option, Shift, and dragged it over. Because it's important that we have the exact same angle here, which we can't always do. And then we just connected these pieces together. Now, I could have just done it this way. This could have been the house that I used. Instead, what I did was I went through and I actually did an offset path. And I believe I did it at 10 pixels. And then I rounded the corners. And two of the corners, these ones here, because they're, and I want to say this is correctly, these are obtuse angles. They need to actually be, they need to have a higher corner radius in order for them to look correct. Then what I just did there is I copied it, pasted it behind. I went to Object, Transform, Reflect. Clicked OK. And then just dragged it over like so. Sending it to the back to make sure it was perfect. Getting rid of this initial piece. And then I just go and click this over till it looks like it's aligned perfectly. And sometimes you'll have to go through and change the width of it a little bit, which is okay. Just like so. And that's how I went through and created the roofs for these houses. So hopefully that answered your question, Row Graphics. And please, if anybody has any questions about how I created certain elements, I know that we did this over multiple live streams, and so I'm perfectly happy to answer any and all questions you guys have. Let's see. Nice, nice. Are you also online on Twitch now? So no, I'm online right now on YouTube. And some of these live streams have also been done on Behance for Adobe. Okay. So we need to go through and we need to make some changes to some of these. And so one thing that I see with this house here, we're going to copy this and bring this up here, is we need to actually extend the roof out. This space here is too tight. So what we're going to do is we're going to ungroup the house. We're going to take this and we're actually just going to move this over just a hair. And I think we're also going to extend the chimney out just a hair, and that feels better. We're going to group that together, copy it. We're going to come back down here, we're going to paste it. And we're going to try to align the house as best as we can. And I can already tell you this is not aligned. So we're going to paste it behind. And it almost looks like it's aligned, but I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see. If we select both of them, we can see that there's a gap in between here. Now, for certain times, that's perfectly fine. You can have that gap. It doesn't matter. But I'm a perfectionist. So I'm going to deselect everything. I'm going to do just like I said before. I'm going to copy this part. I'm going to deselect. I'm going to paste in front. Take the house and align it to bottom. And now it's perfectly aligned to the base. I'm going to deselect the house and delete that extra line. Let's see, how do you keep bringing the chimney back? Are you using hotkeys? Yes, so I'm using, whoops, whoa, I accidentally deleted the wrong part. That's funny. Yes, so I'm using hotkeys, or I'm using keyboard shortcuts. So with bringing things forward and back, actually we'll go up here so you can see it. If you hit Command left bracket, it will actually bring things back. You can't see this because they're on separate planes. There we go. If you do Command left bracket, it sends it back. If you do Command right bracket, it brings it forward. And if you do Command shift left bracket, it sends it all the way to the back of the stack. If you do Command shift right bracket, it brings it all the way to the front. Hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. Do you leave the shapes filled with color for this kind of illustration? Yes. So the reason why that we leave the majority of the shapes with fills here is because of the fact that we have them layered on top of each other. So for instance, and this is a good way of showing this, if I go and remove the fill from here, we now have all of these lines showing. We can see some problem areas here and everything. But if we have it filled, everything works perfectly. And I'm actually noticing, look here, if we zoom in, we see that there's an alignment issue here. So let's fix that as well. With the strokes, you can really see when things are misaligned. And so if you ever wanted to go through before you started doing color and you wanted to make sure that everything was aligned perfectly, you can do that through just changing it to strokes. All right, awesome. So again, if anybody has any questions, please let me know and I will hopefully answer them for you. All right, so we're going to jump in here and we're going to fix this one. We don't have to fix the bigger house, but these smaller houses definitely have to be fixed because of certain issues. Like for instance, you can see here, this part of the chimney is completely blacked out. So we need to ungroup this, take the chimney, and just expand it outward a little bit. Maybe even decrease that just a hair. And now we have a better looking chimney. We're going to pull this roof out just a hair. And there we go. That feels a bit better. So group it back together again. And because we just slid this across, we can slide it right back. And we won't have to worry about alignment issues. And we're going to select the old house and delete it. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and delete these other houses. And just copy those over. Perfect. Thanks. And how do you paste in front or in the back without moving it backwards after pasting it? And that's just a quick shortcut. So for instance, if I copied this and I wanted to paste it directly on top, if I went and pressed Command V, which is paste, it would paste it in the direct center of my viewing screen. But if I pasted Command F, it's going to paste it directly on, and we can bring this up so you can see it's the original still there. If you wanted to paste it in back, you would do Command B, and it would put it behind it, and here you can see it's behind the other house. Savannah asks, is it everything unlocked? So the majority of everything here is unlocked except for this border, the sky here, as well as the clipping mask layer is also locked, and then all of the color layers are locked as well. Everything else here is all clickable. You can see I'm moving everything around. I'm doing that. But you can lock certain elements if you do not wish to move them around. So for instance, if I was moving something specific and I didn't want something around it to move, I could simply just go through and lock anything I don't want to move. Alright, I just realized I forgot to do the clouds here, so I'm going to quick do that. And I'm just going to take a moment and I'm just going to look over the illustration and see if there's any other problem areas. And I believe I've already found one, and that's this area here. But also the fact that we need to change the cliffside details from opacity up to a full 100%, and that instantly tells me what the problem was. So I'm going to copy it and delete it. Whoops. Select the actual shape and then paste it. Oops, paste it in front. And there we go. That's fixed now. Now we need to do these two as well. Now we could leave these as opacity, and I think it would be fine too. And I think that's actually, I kind of like what it's doing. The one thing that I'm not liking though is I don't like how this tree is sitting over here. So we're gonna move some things around so we can bring the tree down, so it's not in the way. And then we're also going to move these elements over to compensate for it. Just like so. So it's okay to change these things if they're not working or something doesn't look right. All right. The one thing I'm also going to do here is with these trees, I'm going to bring them up just slightly because they felt a little bit low. I'm trying to see. Oh, we also have to fix the windows here. Yep. Savannah caught it right as I caught it as well. Okay, so we're going to move these over just like so. And we'll actually probably make them a little bit bigger. And they'll also help spread out the space as well. Alright, now let's do a pass and let's see. And I think that is it. So we're going to unlock everything. And now we're going to apply, we're actually going to first copy the clipping mask square or rectangle. Select everything and apply clipping mask, which is Command 7. Ah, okay, so one problem we have there is that the clipping mask layer was no longer the top layer, so we need to bring that to the front. Take it, and now we have the clipping mask, and then add the same size image, and add a stroke to it, so now that we have everything boxed around, let me zoom out so you guys can see on Instagram. And there we go. Like this could be it. This could be done right now. But if we go back and look at this, we are noticing some things. Number one, in this illustration, we decided to keep the water and we got rid of the rocks instead. Part of me wants to do that, but then part of me doesn't. The reason why I'm going to decide not to do put the water in here, the water lines, is because if I remove the rocks and put the water lines in, then what I would also have to do is I would have to remove these trees here, because we were getting some problems where the trees were bumping up to those the water lines, and it didn't look quite right. So we're gonna keep the water out for now, but we will keep, and we'll also keep the rocks in the water there as well. Keep it in there. Okay, let's see, what else could we change? Could we possibly add? We could also add grass to this as well in different forms. So you can see here there's different forms of grass. I think that it might be a little bit too detailed. So I think that's probably where we're going to keep it. But just like how we did with these, we can also recolor this the same way. So let's actually bring over this here. Whoops. Group that together. Bring it over. Now we're going to pull up the Adobe Recolor. And then just like we did before. Whoops. There's one problem. We have to actually prep this file in order to do it. So the way that we can prep this is that we can actually go in and we can expand it, which is go to Object, Expand Appearance first. Then go back and go Expand. And then we're going to do Fill and Stroke. And we're running into some problems because of the clipping mask. So we're going to undo our clipping mask. I might even decide not to do this because it might take a little too long to do it. And we're already close to our 1 hour. Actually, yeah, so we're not going to do it. So what we can do is we can go in here and we can just select the whole thing. And because everything on here has a stroke to it, we can go in and we can change the stroke color however we want. Then we can also change the fill except for the main color. So we're actually going to undo the clipping mask there. Love technical difficulties. Okay. So we can go through and we can color it much easier than we could before because there's really only 2 colors for this entire illustration. You know what? Let's actually undo that. So the reason why we're having problems here is because of this stroke. If we lock it, oops. Oh, we have a couple things coming in. I've seen you make things like this before, but are those the same clients, or do you do this for fun? Or what type of assignment from a client could this be used for? So this right here is just for fun. This is not for a client. The ones I created before aren't for clients. This is just purely for fun. But they could be created for clients. They could be used for anything from packaging to web design to animation. So there's really a plethora of what you could potentially do here. Do you have rules for this flat style? For example, trees and clouds are like front view, but houses you can see 2 walls and the angles for. Okay, sorry, I'm reading this here. Let me turn this upside right so I can read it. Do you have rules for this flat style? For example, trees and clouds are front view, but houses you can see 2 walls and the angles for. Sorry for the long question. So there's never really rules for this. It comes down to what you want to do and how you want to represent it. So when I put the houses in this fashion, when I put it to where you can see the front and the side, and have like the little pieces like the roof or the chimney also dimensional, that makes this illustration it gives it dimension. And that's what we're trying to do here. So for instance, this right here, this part and this part, this is the foreground. And here, actually, let me bring this down here. This is the foreground of the illustration. This part right here is the midground, and then this is the background of the illustration. That instantly gives this whole thing dimension. What allows us to show even more dimension is when we do stuff like this, when we have these set on almost like a different plane, or when we give them a 2-dimensional feel and look. The same thing we're kind of doing here when we're showing this second row of wind turbines. These wind turbines are actually off in the distance, you know, so they're like maybe 1 row back from these. So that's what we're kind of doing here, is we're showing dimension when it comes to this. And that's what's very important about this type of illustration style, is that we're showing dimension. Now, flat illustrations don't always have to be set up this way. It just so happens that that's how I have this style set up, or this composition set up. Let's see. Savannah asks, can you get rid of the overlapping part instead of the clipping mask? So yeah, so that's what I did. So I went through here, and now we should, within theory, there we go. Now we can actually do that. So now we can just change the stroke and change the fill of it. And so with stuff like this, you can use this for any type of project or client or whatever. For instance, I did something similar like this for a small magazine that a friend of mine at Adobe was putting together. But you can do this about any way. You can use any type of color combination. You don't have to necessarily, whoops, that is a horrible combination. You don't necessarily have to stick to 2 colors. You could add, have certain elements set in a different color as well. So there is that possibility. Let's see. I know there's one more question here on Instagram, but let me jump on. There's a question here on YouTube. Animated explain, or GGRY Design asks, how long would this have taken you if you weren't streaming and working on it on your own? So we did this over streaming over the course of about 3 hours? No, 4 hours, maybe 5 hours-ish. This would normally take me about 1 to 2 hours. Because of the fact that I'm explaining everything and I'm walking you through the entire process, that's the reason why this takes so long for me here. Otherwise, I can do this extremely fast and there's no problem whatsoever. It just is because of the fact that I'm slowing down so I can explain it and that I can answer any and all questions that you guys might have. So that's the reason why this took a little bit longer than it probably normally would. So you can see I'm just going through and just like trying different color combinations for this. I have no idea which color combination I would end up going for, but it's luckily pretty versatile in the types of colors that you can use. Just don't do something like this. Always, always have contrast. Okay, let's see. Let's just do... Yeah. Alright, so I feel like that was a pretty in-depth view of how you can take one of these illustrations and you can actually turn it into a stroked style illustration. If you guys have any more questions, I think Instagram, we probably only have a couple more minutes before it starts counting down. And we've gone a little bit past the time for YouTube, but that's okay. I'll answer 1 or 2 more questions. Let's do 1 question on YouTube and 1 on Instagram. If anybody has any questions, please ask away. If you guys liked what you guys have been seeing on today's live stream, please remember to hit that like button on YouTube and hit that heart button on Instagram. I'm really excited about how this entire week went. Let me actually jump over on here to my main camera screen. I'll even go ahead and use this to talk to you guys on Instagram as well. I'm really excited about how this week's streaming has gone. This week I've done 4 live streams, 2 1-hour live streams and 2 2-hour live streams. And honestly, I'm really excited about how everything went, how everything turned out. And I feel like the amount of people who have tuned in for these streams, who have asked questions, who have been involved, has been much more than I could have ever imagined. And so I just want to thank you guys for that. The good thing is that this is going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going live. Just so you guys remember, the live stream schedule is going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm going live on Behance from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time. And on Mondays and Fridays from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going to be going live on YouTube. Every single time that I go live on either one of these platforms, I'm also going live here on Instagram. And, you know, people are watching this on Instagram in addition to everybody who's watching it on the live streams. So I think there's no other questions that popped up. I know that Instagram is probably about ready to pop off. So I just want to thank everybody so much for tuning in to today's live stream. Next week, by request, the topic for next week is going to be creating vehicles and objects in Adobe Illustrator in the same style. So I hope you guys create something amazing this weekend. Oh, crap. I just remembered. Hold on. I just remembered there is one more thing. Before I go, I actually want to share, if anybody who is on any of the live streams would like to, I actually have a challenge going on right now. You can see the information on this post here, where if you create your own landscape, you don't have to copy the exact same style that I'm using. If you want to create any type of landscape, you tag me in it in an Instagram story or post, and you use the hashtag Rocky's Landscape Challenge, then one potential person will be chosen at random who posted, and I will do a 30-minute call with them, potentially over live stream, where I give them any type of advice that they need, answer any and all questions that they have, and also review any of their work in case they would like me to do so. So if you would like to enter the challenge, just create an illustrated landscape. It can be digital, it can be hand-drawn, traditional, either way, that's fine. And post it to Instagram, tag me in it, and put Rocky Landscape Challenge as the hashtag. And one lucky person on Wednesday of next week, or maybe we'll choose it on Thursday of next week during the Behance live stream, will get a free 30-minute call with me over video call where I'll answer any all questions they have, give advice, and even review their work. So if you guys are interested in that, please definitely take that up. If you guys on YouTube are not following me on Instagram, please definitely do. As you can see here, it's at Rocky Rourke. Look for the blue Cyclops profile icon. And let me jump back over here to the main channel. Whoops. Why is this not wanting to come over? Oh, it's because I'm in full screen over here. That makes more sense. Okay. Again, I want to thank everybody who tuned in. Savannah, who asked a ton of questions on YouTube. Thank you so much for doing so. Mahmood on YouTube for giving the suggestion for next week's topic. I really appreciate it. I think from now on, I'm going to be doing a call for topics moving forward every week. That way, I can get thoughts and feedback from you guys on the live streams. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I really hope that you stay safe out there. Don't do anything stupid. Don't go get a haircut. Don't go to a bowling alley. I'm talking about my home state of Georgia, where the governor has gone crazy and is basically letting people do this. Don't take any chances. This is a time right now where we need to be safe. We need to be healthy. We need to be sane, even though being inside all day, every day can be very insane. But take this weekend and create something amazing. Create a landscape that, like what I created here, or something that you want to do. But always remember to stay passionate, stay positive, and stay creative, guys. Like, this is a perfect time where we can do this. I'm going to be back here on Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube and on Instagram. So if you guys have any questions between now and then, send me a DM on Instagram. I will try to answer it. I try and go through and answer any and all questions that come up. But until next time, I think that's it for today's live stream. Thank you guys so much. And I hope you guys have a great, amazing weekend. A safe weekend. All right, guys. Thank you so much.